All right, we are back. This is part 2 because it stopped on me. So we are looking at the Song of Roland. We just looked at the facts. Now let's look at the legend. What is a legend? You call something a legend. What do you call? What is it?
Like it's just a story.
It's like a myth.
It's like a story.
It is. It's always a story. It's a little bit like Beowulf. The difference is a myth is based on almost no scientific historical foundation. Legends are. Legends are based on something factual. It's just been distorted and exaggerated. And so these are from the time of the battle, 778, about 150 years later, in the 900s, a legend has developed around the Battle of Roncevaux and Roland. And so you need to know that. About the 900s, this legend took about 150 years. Did you know that's one of the arguments in favor of the reliability of Scripture? Because Scripture was written down, the New Testament especially, was written down within 10 to 15 years after Jesus rose again from the grave. Not 150 years. So this story was written around 1000, and it took place that's 200 years. And so legends developed. That didn't happen with the Bible, the New Testament. It was written down within a decade or so of the actual events. People were still living. Like Mark was living, and John was living, and Matthew was living, and Luke was living, Paul was living. All those people were still living who had experienced Christ in the flesh, unlike legends, yes.
Isn't kind of something like, so when was the first Bible published, all put together and when did they start making copies of it?
The printing press was developed in the 1400s, and that was when it was mass produced. But between the time of Christ and 1400, scribes would write it down.
The whole thing?
Yep.
Scribes would write it down.
Do you remember that thing we did in 7th grade?
Yeah.
That's what they would do. They sat there, and every
But,
time they messed up, they would throw it away. And every time they wrote God, they would go and wash their hands before, and then come back and write God. And then change the pen so that they would go.
Yeah, and every chapter had a little decorative thing.
Yeah, do you remember that?
But-
And Huck made it, and he bound his.
They couldn't just scratch it out and be like,
But there were the Old Testament, for instance, was written prior to the New Testament, and they have found copies of that, too. My point here is the Bible can one test of its reliability is the fact that it was written very shortly after Christ's life. It wasn't 150 years like Song of Roland, or 200 years. So in those 200 years, Charlemagne, in the legend, was no longer 38 years old. He was 200 years old. That's not possible. So that's why it's a legend. It's not true. It's made up. The invasion, which Charlemagne attempted to help one group of Muslims against another group of Muslims, had been changed to a crusade against Islam. You will have no doubt that this book, the narrator is happy that Christians are killing Muslims.
Mr. Powell?
Yes.
I have a question. So this is an epic. What is this supernatural strength?
Well, we'll see that in a minute, right here. But that's the next thing. Charlemagne's nephew Roland becomes a epic hero. In other words, at the Battle of Roncevaux, he kills 200 people in an hour, and then he dies later, and there's not a single wound on him. So he's been fighting all day for hours, killing hundreds with his sword, and then when he dies, it's like, okay, it's time to die. There was no visible injury on him. So that's an example of how he's kind of supernatural. Not supernatural, superhuman, right? And then all these characters are made up. Oliver's made up, that's his best friend. The 12 peers, they're made up. They're the Knights of the Round Table type people. King Marsilian, you'll meet him in the first 2 pages. He's the king of Spain. There was no King Marsilian. Ganelon, he's the traitor. He's the Benjamin what's his name? The American general.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or Judas. He's the Judas character. And the Emir Balagan, he's the Lord of all Islam. There is no such thing. In Islam, there are lots of emirs, not just one. But in this book, there's just one. And he's like the Pope of Islam. They don't have a Pope. So all that's made up.
Why are the introductions to all these books really detailed and long?
Because, first of all, it's worth it. There's so much here. And to accurately explain the book, it takes several pages.
Got it. I was just
Mr.
wondering.
Powell,
Yeah.
have you watched like the kid version of Camelot? Where her dad was a part of like the 12 people at the round table?
There've been so many of those. I'm sure I've seen some. The Disney did something, Sword in the Stone.
Sword in the Stone.
Yeah.
All right, I'm moving on. All right, so let's talk about the poem. We got about 5 minutes, so hang in there. All right. The poem was written in, say, the thousands. We again don't know a date. So you have 3 dates again. You have 778, the battle. You got 900, that's the legend, and you got the thousands, that's the poem. So the legend was developed into a poem by multiple authors. So what kind of epic is it?
Folk. No, yeah.
Folk epic. It's a folk epic. Right. It is been written down, historically written down, that French soldiers were singing it. I don't know if they mean singing or reciting it at the Battle of Hastings. You know what happened at Hastings?
They fought.
Yeah.
So there's like a city on top of a hill, and then I forget, I think it was Leif Erikson's descendants that were on top of the buildings. And then there was another invading people group, and they fought, and the people on top of the hill won.
Okay, very good. Those are details I'm not even aware of.
Oh.
But the people were the French. They invaded England. It's the last time, 1066, that's about 1,000 years, isn't it?
Yeah.
About 1,060 years? It's the last time England has been successfully invaded. The United States is 246 years old. So England's history goes back 3,000 years. The history of the United States goes back 246 years.
Don't you ever wonder what like the whole United States protocol would be if we got invaded?
Say
Do you
that
ever
again.
wonder that? What our protocol would be if we were invaded? Because the IRS has a protocol if there were like a nuclear
Oh,
bomb
yeah.
to go off. They have like a
Oh,
way to
yeah.
take your money after 30 days.
I'm sure we do. I'm sure we have that, yes.
So the 900s is when the legend was like.
That's right.
When they first heard the legend.
No, it's when the legend probably was developed over that 150 years since the battle. So by the 900s, it had developed.
And then the 1000s is when the poem.
The poem was written, all that legend was written down into a poem. Right. All right, so the author's unknown. It's based on those little bit of facts that we have. Most of it's just the legend. And
Also
it's
like
the
Beowulf.
earliest and best.
Sorry, like Beowulf, obviously.
Yes, yes, it's just like that. It's the earliest and most famous of the Chris is not in here to laugh at my French. Chanson de geste. That sounds French to me, the way. Chanson means song. And de geste means deed, D-E-E-D-S. Like, so these are songs of deeds, or actions, or heroic deeds. The poem is 4,000 words long. I think, I'm gonna check this while you're writing that now. You know how long Beowulf was? Was 31,082. So this is a little bit longer, well, maybe 900 lines longer. That's not a little bit. It's a quick moving story, emphasizes action. There's not a lot of ideas here. You like action? It's bam, 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 lots of action. And there are minimum stage settings and comments by the narrator. So even the narrator doesn't tell you is the sun shining, doesn't tell you how blue the sky is or how green the grass is. He just tell you, this guy stabbed this guy, and these people stabbed those people.
Nice.
They do like gore. They like blood and gore, just like a lot of modern people do, you know,
But
almost.
is it better than John Wick?
No.
I like John, I've seen some of those movies, but I feel guilty watching it. This is
The
too
fourth one
violent.
is coming out in 2022,
It's-
and I definitely will be in theaters watching it.
Don't you think it's a little too violent?
Keanu Reeves is big.
It bothers me. I don't like it, I can't stop watching it, but okay, I've never seen it in the movies, you know, it's always on TV somewhere. I'll watch it for 20 minutes, okay, I should be on. I'll have bad dreams then.
My grandma hates rallies too. Like, she thinks it's the worst, but then she always wants to watch Hallmark movies, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this. All Hallmark movies for the fall and winter are the same plot.
Hallmark
Like,
movies
I know.
are equally horrible.
They are. She's engaged, but then wait. My heart is Beyonce comes back in town.
Yeah, you could probably write the script to a Hallmark movie.
Wait, what is a Hallmark movie?
What?
You don't wanna know.
You don't even know. Oh, you are so fortunate.
Actually, I like to watch them every now and then.
I like the John Wick
Yes,
It's part Hallmark, but they're not.
It's safe, right? You know what's coming.
I love watching.
You know it's not gonna
No, I like Hallmark. That's what they say. I usually figure it out like that.
Is Hallmark movie?
If I ever become a novelist.
Horror movie.
Oh, can you say that kind of
Horror movie in the winter, I was like.
Can you go back?
Watch a horror
Real quick,
movie.
Mr. Malcolm.
We've probably officially run out of time,
Yeah, we got 1 minute.
but we're not leaving yet. But go ahead and wrap it up here. Don't forget tomorrow,
I'm sorry.
the whole period.
But I'm not sorry.
You're walking
That was
in.
funny. He said,
Hey guys, you're walking in, praying, I'm giving it to you, and you're good to go, and it'll go quickly.
Can we play like smooth jazz or something?
Please.
I got a better idea. Let's play the soundtrack to a Hallmark Christmas.
No, please.
Taylor might lose herself.
Lose myself. I'm going to be in the midst of the characters ask for.
What's up, Sam? Like, I can speak.
Maybe not.